Let's slow it down and make this feel like a cozy, comforting journey through Pride and Prejudice, one chapter at a time. Chapters 1-2, the start of something big. In the peaceful countryside of Hertfordshire, the Bennet family, with their 5 daughters, are living their simple lives. The quiet is disrupted by news that a wealthy bachelor, Mr. Bingley, has rented Netherfield Park just nearby. Mrs. Bennet, desperate to secure good marriages for her daughters, instantly dreams of matching one of them to him. Mr. Bennet, with his sarcastic sense of humor, teases his wife about not meeting Mr. Bingley, but secretly visits him. When Mrs. Bennet finds out, she's beside herself with excitement. She can already picture one of her daughters married to the rich Mr. Bingley. Chapters 3-4, the ball and first impressions. The Meryton ball is soon upon them, and there's a buzz of anticipation. Mr. Bingley is everything Mrs. Bennet hoped for: handsome, friendly, and instantly drawn to Jane, the eldest Bennet daughter. It seems like a perfect match, and the town starts gossiping about it. But then there's Mr. Darcy, Bingley's close friend. He's tall, handsome, and rich, yet he carries himself with a certain aloofness, turning down many dance requests and looking down on those he deems beneath him. Elizabeth overhears him say she's tolerable, but not handsome enough to tempt him, and her heart sinks. She is not amused, but her sharp wit allows her to laugh it off. Chapters 5-6, opinions and tension. Back at Longbourn, the Bennet family discusses the ball. While Jane seems enchanted by Mr. Bingley, Elizabeth can't shake her growing dislike of Mr. Darcy. Her opinion of him hardens, especially after the unkind words she overheard. Elizabeth's best friend, Charlotte, encourages her to consider the practical side of marriage: security over love. But Elizabeth's heart isn't so easily swayed by the conventional. She refuses to let Mr. Darcy's pride define her view of herself. Chapters 7-12, unexpected turns. Jane is invited to Netherfield, but Mrs. Bennet, determined to keep her there, sends her on horseback in the rain, hoping she'll fall ill and extend her visit. Her plan works, and Jane catches a cold. Elizabeth, ever the loyal sister, walks to Netherfield to take care of her. During her stay, Elizabeth has more awkward encounters with Mr. Darcy. Despite his quiet, brooding demeanor, there's something about him that draws her in, though she's not ready to admit it. He begins to notice her more as well, but their interactions are filled with tension, and it seems like he's always looking for an excuse to walk away. Chapters 13-18, new faces and old grudges. Enter Mr. Collins, the Bennet's cousin and heir to their estate. He's pompous and awkward, but he's determined to marry one of the Bennet sisters. His attention falls on Elizabeth, much to her horror. The idea of marrying him for the sake of security feels worse than a nightmare. At the same time, the charming Mr. Wickham enters the scene. He tells Elizabeth a tale of how Darcy wronged him in the past, painting Darcy as a villain in her eyes. Elizabeth, already inclined to believe the worst of Darcy, listens intently, feeling her dislike grow. But even as Darcy continues to act aloof, there's a part of him that seems to be watching Elizabeth more carefully than anyone else. Chapters 19-23, proposals and rejections. Mr. Collins, with his usual lack of self-awareness, proposes to Elizabeth in a manner that is anything but romantic. He speaks about his reasons in the most practical terms, as if the whole thing were a business transaction. But Elizabeth, with her usual courage, rejects him. Charlotte, however, sees things differently. She accepts Mr. Collins's proposal, choosing security over romantic love. Elizabeth is shocked by her friend's choice, but Charlotte explains that practicality matters too. Meanwhile, Bingley suddenly leaves Netherfield, and Jane's heart breaks. It's clear that Darcy had a hand in this. He believes Jane's feelings weren't strong enough for Bingley to pursue her further. Elizabeth, hurt by the situation, begins to feel even more frustrated with Darcy. Chapters 24-35, Darcy's confession and revelation. As Elizabeth's world continues to shift, Darcy does something unexpected. He proposes to her. But his proposal, though filled with passion, is wrapped in condescension. He mentions her lower social standing and makes it clear that, despite his feelings, he's doing her a favor. Elizabeth, shocked and hurt, rejects him immediately. In a letter, Darcy explains himself. He admits to keeping Bingley from Jane, believing Jane didn't love him, and reveals the truth about Wickham, that he is a gambler who tried to elope with Darcy's sister, Georgiana. Elizabeth's anger begins to fade, replaced by a deep sense of confusion. Chapters 36-42, Changing Hearts. As Elizabeth reflects on Darcy's letter, her perception begins to change. She realizes that she may have misjudged him, just as he had misjudged her. When she visits Pemberley, Darcy's estate, her awe at its beauty is only rivaled by her surprise when Darcy himself appears, gracious, warm, and completely different from the man she thought she knew. Elizabeth's heart is torn. Darcy's kindness and generosity make her question everything she thought she understood about him. But even as they grow closer, trouble looms. Lydia, Elizabeth's youngest sister, has run off with Wickham, risking scandal for the whole family. Chapters 43-49, Darcy's Intervention. Darcy, quietly and without fanfare, steps in to resolve the crisis. He tracks down Lydia and Wickham, paying off Wickham's debts and ensuring a marriage that saves the Bennet family from scandal. Elizabeth is moved by Darcy's actions, realizing just how deeply he cares for her and her family. Meanwhile, Bingley returns to Netherfield and this time doesn't hesitate to propose to Jane. The love between them is rekindled and their engagement brings joy to the Bennet household. Chapters 50-61, Happy Endings. After all the twists and turns, Darcy proposes to Elizabeth once more. This time, there's no hesitation, no arrogance, just love. Elizabeth, having seen Darcy's true nature, accepts with all her heart. The two are married, as are Jane and Bingley, and the Bennet family celebrates the end of an arduous journey. Mrs. Bennet, overjoyed by her daughter's matches, gets exactly what she wanted, 2 wealthy sons-in-law. But Elizabeth, ever true to herself, has found something even better, a partnership built on mutual respect, love, and understanding. I hope this slower, comforting retelling gives you all the warmth of a cozy evening read. What do you think?